Welcome everyone to the Fish of Time show, and by everyone I mean the people watching the recording because LogCP is currently either down or just really laggy, such that we can't broadcast it, and we're therefore just doing a recorded show. The topic today is aliens. I know it was supposed to be miracles, but it turns out UNFF Wildcard couldn't make it, so we have decided to do aliens instead, and the guest star is Randomicity 912. Say something.
Hello. Dzień dobry.
All right. I would normally explain now how to call in, but that's kind of useless. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone on the panel. I typed in the Skype chat a little thing, post that as a bulletin so we could try to get people to see the bulletin and call into the recorded show, if that's possible.
You want me to go to YouTube, I'm guessing?
Yeah, post the bulletin on YouTube. I mean.
Okay. Okay, ready. This is it.
All right.
Okay, so
the topic is aliens. I guess the opening question just to ask is, do you think that any kind of alien life, as defining aliens as living things that live on and evolved on other planets and are biological, do you think that those things would be compatible with Christianity, or do you think that they wouldn't?
Okay, who wants to deal with that first?
I'll take a shot at it.
Alright, Michael.
Yes, I think that there is no conflict between being a Christian and believing that extraterrestrial life can exist. The Bible is a very Earth-centric book, but nowhere in it does it say, and by the way, there's no one else out there. And likewise, if there was life on other planets, and let's suppose it was intelligent life, and further that God also cared about that life, there's nothing to say that he wouldn't have a variant of the Bible that is focused on the happenings of that planet. So I do think that the idea that there couldn't possibly be extraterrestrial life is kind of the same thing that led the early Catholic Church into thinking that it was a geocentric universe. It was just, since the Earth is the focus, then that must be all there is.
Okay, okay.
I would be open to the just to open this, I would be open to the possibility of alien life existing, because some of you, there's a certain equation, it's called the Drake equation, I think, is what it calls, and it basically claims that there are 4 million possible worlds where life could evolve, basically. So I would say that I'm definitely open to the possibility of aliens. Does it contradict or conflict with the Bible or Christianity? I would definitely say no, because there's not even a mention of things outside of Earth in the Bible, much less a denial of living things outside the Earth existing. So I am open to the possibility, and no, it does not conflict with Christianity.
Jacob, could you just mute your mic, does that because in the air, just background?
He's just doing the recording. He's off doing an errand, so.
Alright, well, you're next, Puppetel, anyway.
Alright, the Drake equation, it doesn't actually conclude a specific number. What it is that the number of stars in the galaxy, which is like 200 billion or 200 million or something, it says of those how many have planets, of those how many have planets suitable for life, or how many planets suitable for life per solar system. how much of that actually will have life, how much of that life is intelligent, and how much of that intelligent life has technology such that they can communicate with us. Or, of course, if you're using it to argue for UFOs, how much of that intelligent life that communicate with us has been here, and how much of the life that's been here is gray aliens and lizard people and all the wacky stuff they believe in. But it doesn't. It depends on what you put in for the variables. A lot of people put in really conservative estimates, or what they think are really conservative estimates. The problem is that they usually just put in the number 1% over and over again or something. In my opinion, it tends to involve a lot of guesswork with the state of our knowledge now, especially regarding with the state of our knowledge now. I am optimistic as to the number of aliens. It seems like that's a bit of a waste, especially considering that there's large parts of the universe that we can't even see because the light from that part hasn't gotten here yet. And I think that actually does refute the typical arguments against the against the existence of aliens, which is the purpose of the sky and the heavens is to declare the glory of God. Well, not that part that we can't see. It's not declaring God's glory to us, other than giving us a large number for the size of the universe. But I'm inclined to think that that's not the only reason that we can't even see most of the universe. The reason that we. The Drake equation is a good argument, and
Okay, Daniel, do you want to go before me?
Okay.
I would say aliens are compatible with Christianity, absolutely. In fact, I believe definitely in aliens. I am definitely an alienist. I'm not even really agnostic. I have a positive belief that they exist.
Okay, Daniel.
Well, obviously the Bible doesn't say anything either way, so to say that it's incompatible with aliens is basically an argument from ignorance, basically. But at the same time, it doesn't say that there are, so therefore it's not like an answer that can be answered specifically by the Bible. Like, that's one mistake that certain types of Christians make. They tend to think the Bible speaks about absolutely everything, when it doesn't. But as for the possibility of aliens, I definitely think that there's a possibility, but whether or not there's a difference, I think, between possibility and probability. Puppy Turtle mentioned the size of the universe, and that he said that it'd probably be a waste. Well, whilst I'm not necessarily disagreeing with that, there's arguments in the anthropic cosmological principle by Barrow and Tipper that say that the universe has to be the size it is to push all the, I think it's the inhomogeneities out so that there can be a life-permitting region. I haven't read up as much about the fine-tuning as of yet. I mean, I've recently purchased the Kindle version of the Blackwell Companion, which talks about fine-tuning. But I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of stuff to say. But I'm definitely open to the possibility, but I'm just not sure if they're probable as of yet. One thing that I do find interesting is the question of what kind of alien life does exist, if there is any, because a lot of people, when you say aliens, they automatically pick, I think it was, I can't remember who said it was, but they automatically think of like greys and like flying saucers and so on, but actually that's not necessarily like what alien life is. I mean, there could be just bacteria, there could be like like low level intelligence form of life. They could just be animals, for instance. So yeah, that's all I have to say at the moment.
Okay. Do you want me to go first, Michael, or do you want to go before me?
Well, I'll go real quick. I wanted to comment on a couple things. First of all, as to what would alien life look like, I think that it's the arrogance of man, and I don't mean with this particular group, I mean man in general, to try and suggest that aliens must look like any of the things like you just mentioned, whether it be bacteria, animal life, the Greys, lizardmen, whatever, because we have this assumption. We think that life comes about through the natural process we call evolution. Of course, us theists believe that process was kicked off by a divine entity. But assuming that we evolved over the course of millions of years to adapt to our environment, who's to say that life couldn't evolve to an environment that we couldn't even fathom life existing on, and therefore life could exist in forms that we can't even comprehend right now, either on a scale much larger than anything we thought of, much smaller than anything we thought of, maybe made out of gas, out of liquid, even out of plasma. So I do think that we limit ourselves when we think about aliens and we immediately picture little gray men and flying saucers. On what Aaron and Puppy were talking about as far as like the Drake equation, when Puppy was pointing out the problems of the Drake equation, as far as not knowing all the variables, then he also said he's a positive UFOist. I wouldn't call myself a positive UFOist because of the fact that we don't know all the information. If you cannot say for sure all the factors involved, then the odds of something boil down to 50-50. You can't, if you do not know, for example, the number of stars in the galaxy that have habitable planets, then while the Drake equation is a nice little fun guessing game at it, you have absolutely no basis for saying that you think that there's 300 million planets that have life, or whether there's 2 or 3 out there. And I'm not picking on you guys. I'm just saying that, and this is a problem I see with atheists as well, when they start saying, there couldn't possibly, the odds of God existing are like 0.001%. And it's like, well, you're basing that on having information that you simply cannot have. At the most, you would have to say that the existence of God is 50-50. Anyway, that's my tirade. I'll leave it to you, boss man.
Okay. I think aliens are compatible with Christianity because, again, nothing in it excludes their existence. Really, I think it just deals with what happens here, which again, it doesn't say, other planets are insignificant or don't matter as much. It just deals with what's happening here and what's important to us as human creatures. Now, as to Michael's comment about what they could be like, I'd probably say that they're like us. I know you might disagree with that, but hear me out. I mean, we've got to think that from what we know, every creature in the universe goes through evolution. Now, I disagree that any sort of like gas-based or plasma-based life form could go through evolution the same way that we have gone through ours. I think it would have to be some carbon-based life form like we are. It may not have the same sort of traits we did, but it'd have to have like some humanistic sort of qualities to it to be able to be what we consider, because again, plasma and all that sort of stuff won't be sentient beings. I think. I mean, I don't know what Michael would say to that, but I think that is probably more likely that it'd be carbon based than anything else. Anyway, probably wants to go next.
And then, in response to what Michael said about how could I say that I'm a positive UFOist? I'm not a positive UFOist. I'm a positive alienist. Do not confuse the two. One person is a nut job who believes they know everything about aliens and that they visited Earth. The other person affirms the idea that humankind is not the only species of life, or that humankind and other. The other one affirms the idea that species of life exist that did not evolve on Earth. Do not confuse the two because they are vastly different.
I stand corrected. I apologize for the mix-up there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that the issue with what I was pointing out was just that the Drake equation doesn't give us an exact number, but based on our current ignorance of the relevant relevant subject matter, but at the same time, in order to get us being alone, you have to put numbers that are implausible. It feels like, I mean, what I would, and also I would cite that, I would say that my theism would indicate to me that the entire universe has a purpose. Therefore, there's a reason it's as big as it is, and it may be, as Daniel said, it may be to fine-tune the universe for life. But if that's true, I guess that kind of does refute the argument. But it seems to me that the idea of aliens is well supported, especially given I think that the ultimate argument is, or at least one of the ultimate arguments is biological evolution. I'm inclined to regard the universe as sort of being a generator of, or at least perform certain processes that are required, that God uses to create sentient life. And if He does that here, why not do that everywhere?
Okay, are you finished, Puppy?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael?
Well, obviously I didn't mean to strawman you there, Puppy, as far as the UFOist as opposed to alienist. But I do want to point out that another flaw with the Drake equation is that it assumes life as we know it. Life, carbon-based, life that could exist here on Earth. And Bossman, when you say that you don't think that life would go through, life that was not based on, say, solid matter, like something like plasma or whatever, would most likely not go through an evolutionary process. Why not? I mean, all evolution is the process of mutation and natural selection. And there's nothing that says that if life doesn't happen to be made out of meat and bone, that it wouldn't go through a natural selection process. And that if it was replicating itself, that those replications would have to be perfect if it's not a carbon-based product. I think that because of the fact that all life we've ever seen has been life on Earth, we assume that all life must be like life on Earth. And I think that I've always been a person who's been very interested in extraterrestrial life. I think that it is extremely likely that extraterrestrial life exists. But I do think that we tend to narrow our search a little too much. I think that it's entirely possible that there's life within the solar system in forms that we just can't really imagine because we don't know what to expect.
Okay, Puppy?
What I would say to that is, I would say that it's not the issue if we assume that because life, firstly, if you're going to say life can exist else than the way it exists on Earth, that helps the argument for extraterrestrials, because what it means is that on Drake equation, it would increase the number of planets that would bring forth life. It would increase the number of planets that would be habitable. It would increase the number of planets it would increase the number of life that would evolve.
Absolutely.
Could go through an evolutionary process. But sadly, I don't think it is possible. I mean, biochemistry is remarkably perfect for being alive, and we at the very least don't know of any other combination of many other combinations of chemicals that would be. So other chemicals like maybe replace phosphorus with another thing like they thought they did in that new wave biogenesis event thing that turned out to be crap. Something like that may have happened elsewhere where a single chemical is different or something like that, but I am extremely skeptical of the idea that we can have living gas simply because it's gas bears literally no resemblance to anything we know to be alive, and we neither know how it could be, or we don't just not know of an instance where it is. We understand why what we do know is, and we know that gas doesn't have a couple of the properties, or at least to my knowledge, we know that gas doesn't necessarily have the right properties.
Okay, Daniel.
I'd just like to point out, there's a couple of definitions, of life. Well, no, it's the kind of there's a core set of attributes that something has to have in order to be classified as alive. And, it's like some kind of like mnemonic or something, but it's usually growth, respiration, reproduction, and so on and all that. And so, if something possesses all those things, then that is what counts as alive. So, hang on, I've suddenly forgotten what I was going to say. But I think it was, Michael was going on about gas-based and liquid-based forms of life, but and also alternate possibilities to carbon-based life forms. Well, I've just forgotten what I was going to say. I'm sorry.
I remember, I wasn't saying that nothing can have a different biochemistry than we do, and I realize I'm talking out of turn, but there's other molecules besides DNA that can do what DNA does, like TNA, but what I don't think you can get is other states of matter, life made entirely out of plasma, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree, but oh, sorry.
No, I would just point out, even though, granted, we'll talk about one quick thing that I believe everybody in this room actually would agree with. Is God alive? I think we would all say yes. Is God a solid object? I think we would all say no.
Indeed. Yeah.
And while God is an exceptional being, well, what about angels? What about demons? I don't think that life that is not made of solid matter, that could be made out of other states of matter, is really all that unreasonable. It might not be anything like what we picture life to be. In fact, you could have a single life form the size of, say, a solar system because of how loose gas is bound compared to solid matter. But I do think it's definitely a possibility.
Okay, Aaron, do you want me to go first, or do you want to go before me? It's either way.
I just want to say something really quickly. Basically, that is a very interesting point there, Rational Roundtable. Science really isn't my thing, but I'd just like to point out something that really just stuck out at me regarding this whole discussion. I'm not really prepared to defend it or anything, but it seems like some of you are using basically like a false dichotomy, essentially, because you are basically speculating on possibilities of other forms of life, and you're basically applying thinking about the question philosophically of life, when I think it's life and biochemistry and stuff is really just a scientific issue. So I don't think that, while it might not be necessarily wrong, I think it's kind of a false dichotomy to sort of philosophize about a scientific.
Okay, can I, if you're finished, I'll respond to Michael if I may. The thing is, Michael, is that when you look at, for example, the way the universe works, well, the way we know it works, it seems very unlikely, probably very probable that gas-based or plasma-based life forms could come into existence, because we know that plasma and gas, can't really bind to each other in the same way that carbon and other things bind to each other. For example, if you look at the way that we came into being, from bacteria and stuff like that, they can replicate because they're based on carbon emissions, whereas so like gas, gas doesn't really clean itself. It tends to evaporate into the atmosphere. I understand that I'm basing this purely based upon like an airborne place atmosphere, but most planets that give life are in what we call Goldilocks zones, because I know that you're a fan of Rachel Cuckoo, so we'll use that term. So therefore, to get sort of life as we would know it, it seems more likely to be carbon-based. I'm not saying totally no, but it seems very likely that from what we know how gas and plasma work, that sort of life can come into way. But I mean, I'm not saying totally impossible. It just seems very unlikely they could develop like complex systems like breathing apparatus and limbs and stuff like that, or anything that we would constitute as, sort of life as we would know it.
Well, I think at the core of what I'm saying, and of course, obviously, I don't think that any of us are, dogmatically stating what we're saying is true or anything. I don't think that we're being that arrogant. But what I'm saying here is that we always, in fact, it's one of the most common sayings when we talk about extraterrestrial life is the phrase "life as we know it." The problem is that we tend to forget about the possibility of life that is not as we know it, life that is something completely different than what we perceive in the world around us. Because if you think about it, the reason that we tend to assume that, for example, life requires carbon, requires water, requires an oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, is because every bit of life that we have ever seen happens to fit those conditions, but then every bit of life we have ever seen happens to be on the planet we're on. And that's the environment of our planet. And so if we were, say, some kind of form of life that we can't even imagine right now, living in floating around in the atmosphere of Jupiter, then we would say that life would have to live in a high-wind hydrogen environment, and it wouldn't even be possible for life to exist on a planet like Earth.
Firstly, I don't believe it's actually, I think it's my turn, isn't it? Bossman?
Well, do you want to finish your point, and then Daniel takes over from you?
Okay. Firstly, I would say that that's actually not true that all life we know of does that. In the early history of life, there wasn't oxygen. Actually, everything managed to get by without it. In fact, it was originally a toxic substance to be feared, but the great oxygen poisoning forced life to evolve respiration and be able to use it, and that caused the Cambrian explosion, which went on. It's a very fascinating idea, the topic, the great oxygen poisoning. Also, you said that God is alive. I would actually say that in the sense of alive we're talking about, I do not believe God is a physical being with homeostasis, composed of cells, having organization, has metabolism, grows, adapts and changes, responds to stimuli, and reproduces himself to create very similar copies. I would say that God doesn't do any of those things, or doesn't do all of those things.
Well, If nobody else.
Michael, do you want to reply straight to Poppy, or do you want to as well first?
Yeah, I'm giving you a quick response to that. Is that I agree with you, Puppy, that God does not meet that classical definition of life. However, we would also not say that God is not a living thing, that God is not a living being. That we know instinctively, and this is not just theists, but I think that there is an a priori knowledge that life does not necessarily mean something that respirates, something that has cells, etc. We know we are alive because we are alive. I think life, particularly sentient life, is about consciousness. I think, therefore, I am. And I think that, for example, it will be possible in the future for there to be living machines if there is, if computers reach that level of technology, like we'd love to see in science fiction. If that were the case, would you say, well, it's not really alive because it doesn't respirate?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, not because it doesn't respirate.
Well, then all you're doing is applying a arbitrary definition to life that really becomes pointless. Okay, so God doesn't respirate, therefore God is not alive. Okay, well, now an atheist can argue that God is dead based on that very argument, that's saying that, well, God does not meet the clinical definition of life as stated by Puppy Turtle. Therefore, Puppy Turtle doesn't really believe in God. And I think that's the very core of the problem, as I see it, when we talk about the search for extraterrestrials, is that we have this arrogance as a species to assume that life must be like us. That, we respirate, therefore all life must respirate. We have cells, therefore all life must have cells. And I think that is, in fact, the height of arrogance.
Okay, Daniel?
Okay. I just wanted to say, I think you're committing an argument from equivocation in that, like, we're just specifically discussing biological life, not necessarily. And with respect to biology, everything within our space-time is governed by, well, I'll say governed by physical laws. That's just a kind of figure of speech. I mean, basically, but it's described by physical laws and operates by these laws. Well, to the best of our knowledge, anyway. But God exists outside of space and time, so I think that's kind of a poor analogy. But I've been looking up at the exact what they called phenomena that something must require to be alive is homeostasis. Organization, metabolism, growth, adaptation, response to stimuli and reproduction. Although that's kind of a general basis of definition of life, some other people have proposed alternate definitions, such as a network of inferior negative feedbacks, or so on, or just like a chemical system capable of undergoing Darwinian evolution and so on. Although one interesting discussion is that the viruses, which are replicators, possess genes and evolved by natural selection, but they don't metabolize. So that's an interesting thing.
Daniel, you have the same Wikipedia page open as I, don't you?
Yep. I'm being lazy because I couldn't remember everything.
Okay, okay.
Okay, I just wanted to say that Blog TV is back up and running, so do you want me to start broadcasting the show, or do you just want to stay with the recorded show?
Very much start broadcasting it, Aaron.
All right, just a minute.
Okay, was that all you wanted to say, Aaron, or did you want to Michael, because I have something to say, if I may?
Yeah, can you wait, say something until I say that we're broadcasting?
Okay.
Okay, we are back on the air, so to speak, and then we're back on Blog TV, so send messages to people so we can get callers. I guess, Boston, you can go.
Okay. Michael, the problem is that we know that there's only a specific number of planets that can give what we consider life power. Now, it seems very, as I said, it doesn't seem likely that they're going to be gas-based or plasma-based because, again, how we know that evolution works is that it stems from a single cell. Now, unless you're going to argue that like a gas giant like Jupiter or something like that can produce a sentient life, maybe that could fall into what we consider a Goldilocks zone. I mean, is that what you're thinking, or are you thinking more of that it comes from the same sort of like primordial soup that we came from?
Well, no, I'm not making any assumptions as to if that, and that again goes kind of back to what I was saying, is that we keep assuming that it must have certain similarities to us. I think with the exception, when we're talking about intelligent life, sentient life, the only qualifier of something being a sentient life form is that it is conscious and self-aware. I don't think that respiration and all that is necessarily a requirement. As far as like a plasma-based life or gaseous, I think it is entirely possible, for example, for a plasma-based life form to exist on the surface of stars, not necessarily planets. Most planets are far too cool for plasma to exist in normal conditions. Then you have, as far as gaseous life, I think that it would have to exist in an environment totally alien to us as well. Maybe on a planet like Jupiter, or maybe in giant gas clouds that we see all over the universe that are literally light years across. And so when we start thinking about a cell, well, we think of this microscopic piece of matter. Well, what about the possibility that a cell could be 10,000 miles across and very loosely bound by our standards? But by its standards, it's every bit as tightly bound as the cells in our own bodies. I think that it's a matter of scale, it's a matter of perspective.
One day, kids are going to want to wear my jersey.
Oh, I guess Puppy's got a TV going or something.
Hold on. Oh, you did.
Okay, well,
you got my point.
Yeah. But if I may respond while Puppy's doing that, because he did have hand after that. The problem is, Michael, is that we do know from like Michio Kaku's book on parallel universes on the ninth about time. It's called the ninth part of the universe or something like that. I try to remember the name of the book. He talks about the conditions that it takes for life, which is the Goldilocks zones, the right sort of temperature, and he doesn't really talk about things that could start on stars and stuff like that. That's why I'm just wondering, like, is it even possible in this universe for gaseous or plasmonic life? Is it possible in this universe, or is that a contradiction in terms? What were the rules that we know we have in this universe? That's what I'm saying.
Right. Well, the problem is that we don't know what all the rules are in this universe. We have our lovely periodic table of elements. Do we know for sure that is every element in existence in the universe? Or are there hundreds of other elements in configurations that we never even considered, maybe even made up of particles other than protons, neutrons, and electrons? We just make these assumptions that the way that things are here must be the way things are everywhere, and that's my biggest problem with it, is that base assumption that the Earth must be the standard, Earth must be the norm, when it's entirely possible that Earth is rather unusual. If you look at, for example, at least as the way that solar systems are constructed, our solar system is kind of unusual in that most solar systems are binary systems. So we already have at least one feature of our solar system that is outside of the norm. Therefore, if life does have a tendency to evolve wherever the laws of physics allow, who's to say that it must evolve in the way that we have it? And I'm not trying to pick a fight with anybody. I just, I personally am a strong supporter of the idea that extraterrestrial life does exist. I just think that when we talk about groups like SETI and stuff like that, we're constantly assuming that life must exist on our terms. And I don't think that's the case.
Okay. Papa Turtle, do you want to go next?
Yeah, two things I want to say. Firstly, if you want to call into the Fish of Time show, send a Skype invite to Fish of Time, FISHOFTIME, all lowercase, all one word. Do not call us. We will call. We will bring you in at the next opportunity. And speaking of which, Koki Pirate is on.
Okay. Thank you. For Koki Pirate and double Koki Pirate.
Is it my turn now?
Yeah.
Okay. That's what Michael was saying about how various different particles. That's actually quite interesting. I was reading something recently about discussing the varieties of different particles. There's like different types of quark, for instance. Like there's the up and down, but then there's the strange quark, I think, and the charm quark and so on. And there's a variety of different particles. So that's definitely an interesting thing to make a note of. Whether or not they would different combinations of these would allow for different forms of life, I'm not sure. I read but a while ago, I do remember reading something about the strange quarks, about how they work, and apparently, well, this is what I gathered from the article, in that the fact that they apparently are all, I think it was in connection with the LHC. There was some panic over whether or not the Large Hadron Collider would generate strange quarks, because the argument went, if it did, then it would convert the Earth into a neutron star or something. So, yeah, that's just something I thought I'd bring up. Yeah.
Okay, Koki Pirate, what's your statement, question, or query?
No, I just like this conversation, and when we're talking about material life, like there are 12 particles of matter, but when we're talking about things with mass that could be affected by gravity and such, well, light can be affected by gravity too, but of the 12 particles of matter, the only 3 relevant ones are protons, neutrons, and electrons. And carbon is the most versatile in the sense that it can form more different combinations than any other element. And that's why organic life seems a bit more likely. Though I would say that evolution very rarely favors intelligence. And if there is intelligent life, chances are it would be too far away for us to ever come in contact with it.
Okay, who wants to respond to that? Anybody?
I think that it depends, again, on what ultimately the rules of the universe are. I think that Pirate is quite correct in that if intelligent life does exist outside of this planet, then it would likely be very, very far away, and definitely by today's standards, beyond our reach. But if, let's suppose that we develop the technology in the future to do things like fold space so that we can go in a virtual faster than light type of situation, well then anything becomes possible. I think that it really depends on what the ultimate rules of the universe are, which unfortunately we don't really know. We have various hypotheses about whether or not this idea would work or this idea would work. But it may well be that if something is 1,000 light years away from us, we'll never, ever be able to reach it. But it's also possible that within 100 years, 1,000 light years might seem like next door. So we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, yeah, I suppose there's always the factor of the limits of technology and the limits of our imagination, which are two very different things. But also, just, I mean, are we going to be like Mormon missionaries going from planet to planet, see if anyone answers us? Chances are, when we do encounter life, the very rare instances that we do, it's probably going to be like most of the Earth's history. You know, I'm assuming no one here is a young Earth creationist. I mean, for pretty much all of history except for the past, I wouldn't even say past 100,000 years, for the past, let's say 20,000 years, there really wasn't that much to speak of on the planet. You know, it'd be something that we look at the animals, look at the plants, and then pack up and leave.
Well, or you could even say that, as Stephen Hawking postulated, that if we did make contact with some extraterrestrial life form and they were significantly more advanced than we were, chances are we would end up extinct. You know, and you could cite what's happened in Earth's human history with things like Native Americans and stuff.
They aren't extinct.
Well, they're not, but you know what? They might as well be for what happened to them. They very well could have been. Look at the Mayans. They are extinct.
No, their language is still practiced, and there's still a lot of genetic Mayans.
But you understand what I'm saying? Their culture was destroyed by the onslaught of a quote-unquote superior technological race coming into play. If some alien life form that had existed and had been developing technology for, say, 1 billion years before we ever existed, then if we actually came into direct contact with these people, chances are either we would appear as microbes to them, or they would, inadvertently, if not purposefully, wipe us out.
Well, I definitely do see the reasoning behind it, and I do have a great deal of respect for Stephen Hawking, and I believe I saw that. He said that on the History Channel and probably a couple of other times.
Yeah.
But the key difference between the Western civilization and the Native Americans and aliens with Earth is that the Western civilization had limited resources. In fact, by lack of wood, the dependence on wood as a fuel source, had they not come to the Americas, Europe was heading towards a population crash. Whereas when we're talking about extraterrestrial life, we're talking about a species that is sustainable in space, and everything they could possibly need, from energy to different elements, metals and such, and even water. It's much more abundant outside of Earth. And so it seems unlikely that there would be any real incentive to settle Earth unless we're producing something that they can't get anywhere else in the universe.
Okay, Daniel?
I just wanted to talk about the Western conquest of the Mayans. The Aztec Empire and the Mayan Empire were essentially an elite group, a people group that controlled smaller groups and actually were quite nasty to them. The reason why they were defeated wasn't because of the technological advantage. The conquistadors were hopelessly outnumbered. They managed to defeat them mostly because of teaming up with locals who didn't like them, and also because of European diseases, which they Amerindian immune systems couldn't handle. I mean, the irony there is that the Europeans couldn't handle African diseases, which is sort of a little something I found a little ironic. But yeah, that's just something I thought I'd add. But adding to what Koki Pirate said, and also the discussion about Stephen Hawking and so on, is that the only way I could foresee an advanced alien civilization coming to wipe us out is if we had like mineral resources that they somehow lacked. I recently saw the movie Cowboys and Aliens, where they plan to wipe us out to steal our gold, which I found rather entertaining. There was also Independence Day, where they just want all our natural resources anyway, all of them. So, I mean, that's a definite possibility, but there's one argument one aspect of the conversation where if it does exist an intelligent life and they are aware of us, the reason why they haven't visited us is probably because, well, we're stupid to them, or they don't like us, or we're barbaric or something. That's something I've read somewhere.
Okay, thank you, Time.
Yeah. Firstly, regarding the claim that we are barbaric, I mean, I don't know. I think that when we come up with that general theme that we're not being visited because we're barbaric. I think that is us kind of getting down on ourselves a tad bit, because I mean, consider that aliens, unless they're perfect and sinless, they're going to be bad too. I mean, I guess that if we are barbaric, then it's going to be at least correlated with what I was about to say. I think the reason that if aliens know about us, they wouldn't address us is exactly because they understand. It's exactly because of a sort of ethic to prevent what we didn't have as sort of ethic, the kind of thing we didn't have in dealing with the Native Americans. It's in Star Trek, the idea of the prime Star Trek. The idea of the prime directive is that I find that realistic simply because it seems to me like you indeed shouldn't interfere with the development of a civilization. I mean, it's getting close to the end of the first hour.
I'm actually interested that you brought up, Star Trek, the idea of humans going to alien planets and whatnot, because put yourself in the alien shoes. When would it be ethical to settle a planet? I doubt that they need any mineral resources. There's a chance that they might need some sort of plant resource, or maybe even oil could have some value to them, or something that requires Earth life, because any element is far more abundant in space. So I can't imagine they do it for resources, but exactly, would it be ethical to inhabit a planet that does not have life, but is in the Goldilocks zone? Would it be ethical to inhabit a planet with life, but no sentient life? Would it be ethical to inhabit a planet with sentient life in terms of, animals that can move around and such, but no intelligent life? And then, of course, if there is intelligent life in the planet, exactly how far along their development would they have to be before it's ethical to make first contact?
Okay, Puppet Turtle.
Okay. I would say that regarding. Okay. I would say it would be definitely ethical. I see no problem with inhabiting a planet that is unlikely to produce life, that has life in it, that doesn't have life in it, that is in the Goldilocks zone. I think that is perfectly ethical, especially if the planet's old enough that it probably would have produced life if it was going to. I would say that it's ethical to inhabit a planet that has only microbial life, or so long as you don't act in a way that you destroy them. And likewise with the life that's sensitive but not like, you know, fully sentient and rational. I would say that yes, it would be ethical, again, so long as we're not hurting them in horrible ways or wiping them out. Regarding if it's fully rational, Jacob, use your mic. I would say that if we have their consent to inhabit their planet, there's obviously no problem. If they want to tell us to go away, I think that they kind of have the right to that one planet. And as for when it's ethical to make first contact, I would say that I would say that it would. I don't know. It's just a wild, random guess I would have to be making. But it's probably something along the lines of when they're at the point that once they're at the point that they're expecting us, perhaps, or if we know of some sort like about the point that we are at right now, you know, we're kind of expecting aliens. I would say that's probably the point at which it becomes ethically acceptable. But I don't know enough to know that that's not horribly wrong and would cause massive amounts of awful damage to their culture. So I can't say that for sure. And if you want to call into the Fisher Time show, send a Skype invite to Fisher Time, all lowercase, all one word. Do not call us, we will call you. Do not appear offline, and please call in with an actual question. Don't just call to talk.
Okay, Michael.
Oh gosh, lost track of what I was going to say. Probably what you were before you did your little plug for the show. Could you just in like one sentence re-summarize what you heard? Oh yeah, no, okay, never mind. Okay, so microbial life. You say that it would be unethical to inhabit a planet with microbial life if we, in the process, destroyed such life.
Yes.
So, is it unethical for you to use Purell on your hands, wiping out microbes?
When I said destroy such life, I meant extinction. There's no danger of me rendering.
But do you think we drive various viruses to extinction all the time? It's a process where we come up with a vaccine for that virus, and unless the virus happens to mutate, it goes extinct.
That's different on two counts. Firstly, this is our planet. I feel like we have more ownership rights than we would somewhere else. Somewhere else, you could be an external invader, and we should try to leave as little of a footprint as we can to do our business and just do our business. That's the first thing. Secondly, if there's no microscopic life, there's not going to be anything that's evolved to be pathogenic towards macroscopic life. Thirdly, I think that there's an ethical difference between eliminating a disease which is hurting people and eliminating something like, were we to go on that kind of genocidal rampage against the harmless little amoeba, there's something more. I think there may even be something slightly morally wrong with that.
Right, but let's suppose you landed on a planet and it looked much like the surface of the planet Mars, right? Pretty much desolate. But within the Goldilocks zone has a doable atmosphere, etc. Are you going to immediately scour the planet looking for microbes to make sure that you're not interfering with these microbes' potential society billions of years in the future? Or are you going to simply colonize that planet? I don't think it realistically, from a practical sense, people are going to start searching every globe for microbes, except for maybe to try and prove there is life out there. But like if we found microbes on the surface of Mars, I don't think that would stop us from trying to colonize Mars. I think, in fact, it would encourage us to colonize Mars. And that is exactly what I think would ultimately, if incredibly superior or inferior life out there exists, will lead to the destruction of one or the other. If an alien that's a billion years ahead of us landed on Earth, would they even recognize us as sentient life forms? Or would they simply see us as microbes? Sure, large ones, but no more important than an amoeba or a cold virus.
Okay, Gleeky Pilot?
Yeah, I just wanted to, dang it. I just wanted to mention that I suppose the bigger ethical difference here is that in our current state of development, we are affected by cockroaches and diseases and so on and so forth. If we're talking about settling a planet, it's largely for our own comfort, because this is long after we've already become sustainable in space. I mean, when it comes to mining for resources, I'd imagine near every star system would have their own equivalent of the asteroid belt that would be much safer to go to. And even then, I can't imagine the birth rate being as high as it is now, that we would need to be expanding all the time. So that would be the biggest ethical difference between inhabiting a planet with microbes in this foreseeable future as opposed to going there now. Because if we were to go to Mars, I mean, people still need to live somewhere. We can't just make this spaceship that we'll be able to live in for thousands, if not millions of years.
Okay, Daniel?
But I just wanted to say, relating to the ethics of whether it was okay to kill, say, like, life. I think there's two senses in which I think it would be immoral to kill life forms on, say, on another planet. A, if they're persons, not necessarily like ourselves, but they definitely show, like, and also, B, I think it'd only be wrong to kill, say if we colonize a planet and there's, say, like, just animals there, or microbes even, I don't see any problem, say, killing them. Maybe wiping them out to extinction would be wrong to drive, say, an alien species to extinction. If they're just there and and we're accidentally killing them, then we should definitely not at least try and prevent that from happening. But although I think if our survival depended on it, I'd see no problem, say, colonizing like a random planet, as long as there aren't, like, say, people, and by people I don't mean humans, I mean like personal agents that have, can, what I mean by the philosophical definition of person kind of thing. So, yeah. If that makes sense.
It does, but like I said, at this point, we'd be pretty sustainable in space. I can't really see any real basis for inhabiting a planet other than convenience. And so I'd say any interference with any life or potential life would be fairly unethical.
Okay, can I just respond to that quickly, Pilot, if I may? We want it because we like to, mix and mingle, because, human race history, race in general, is to mix and mingle. I mean, that's why you get, white people marrying black people and, people intermingling, because we like to and I tell you, if we get out there, we're going to intermingle what human beings are like. We like to mess around and do stuff. I mean, because you know that as soon as we meet the alien species, we'll try and figure out a way of sleeping with it.
You.
As long as they can consent, I have no issue. If they can conceivably make that conscious decision to consent, that is.
I have an issue. I have an issue with it. It's gross. I'm sorry.
Well, you never know. They might be really hot. I mean, you say it's gross, but what are you picturing? Little gray men, or what if they look like the Na'vi from Avatar, and you just happen to fall in love with one of them?
I mean,
Would you be able to reproduce with them?
He was in a Na'vi body, so that was not creepy because he was really functionally one of them as he fell in love with her. And
Puppet Turtle. Have you ever watched the Star Trek the original series?
Yeah, Kirk was doing Green Chicks. Come on. Now.
Yeah. Exactly. Kirk would get it on with any chick. I remember one episode where he got it on with some shit that looked like a cheater or something. From I think that was from season 10. He's been around. There's nothing wrong with that.
I would tend to say that, as long as, just more or less the same way I feel about life on Earth, is two or whatever number of beings wants to get together and have an intimate time, that is their business as long as they are all of consenting age and all consensual. Now, could you, excuse me, could you make the argument that there's something immoral about it? Well, maybe, depending on what you're talking about. But even so, that's between them and God, and whatever. But if I happen to, if I never met my wife and I was exploring the universe and I happened to meet some hot green chick from, the planet Cestus 3, and she and I fell in love, what's the problem? As long as that I'm male and she's female, we're both sentient, conscious beings, and we want to spend our lives together. So what?
are you aware that dolphins are sentient?
Yeah, and you know what? The odds of me falling in love with a dolphin are nil. And the odds of a dolphin falling in love with me are nil. And the ability for us to consent to each other is impossible. And so, no, it's not the same. I'm not saying that, even though, sure, you can define dolphins as sentient, but you cannot sit down with a dolphin, have a conversation, fall in love, and have consensual sex with a dolphin. It's simply not possible.
Okay.
Unless maybe you're
Okay, Daniel?
So I want to say there's a difference between sapience and sentience. Sentience is just kind of, as like obviously, is consciously aware, and whereas sapient is obviously, it more refers to intelligent forms of life, and of course so on. One thing I find about this conversation is whether or not it's possible to reproduce with, say, an alien, because obviously different species can't reproduce, so they'd have to be fairly similar genetically to us in order for that to happen. Just thought of something I'd bring up.
I think it would be really interesting if we could. Then that would mean there's probably more to the equation than we thought.
Okay.
Yeah, that's...
Okay, keep it. Sorry.
Okay, no, I was just going to say, yeah, that would definitely completely destroy anything we thought we understood about biology if we could have children with a species from another planet. I just wanted to point out, as long as I'm male and she's female, aren't we assuming a little too much about alien genitalia here? And I guess that's the last word.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you the real last word that you are prepared for if you want.
Go on.
I'm giving you that. Like, do you have to say before I remove you?
Okay. No, I just wanted to say that, I mean, what I came here to generally say is that life could very well be abundant in the universe, but with our incredibly small and unlikely opportunity there is for evolution to actually favor intelligence, that, you know, I guess Daniel's term sapiens life could develop, in the sense that there could be a civilization we could actually have a conversation with, when we presently can't have a conversation with any other organism on our own planet. It strikes me as slim to none. That being said, I'm sure somewhere in the universe it's out there.
Okay.
All right then. Okay. Hang out. All right. And at this, mind if I change the subject briefly at this junction?
Yep.
What I was gonna. Yep, you mind as in I can't, or?
No, yep. As in yes, continue.
All right. The next question is this. Okay, now that we've talked about the existence and nature of their biology, let's move over to the theological aspect of aliens and ask, what do you think their relationship with God would likely be like? Or do you think, how many varieties do you think there would be, etc.?
I think that likely it would be very much like our own. I think that you would probably have aliens who are theists, aliens who are atheists, and aliens who are fighting with each other over whether or not a supreme being actually exists.
That's not what I meant. What I meant is that is the question of what is actually true of them. Like, you know, for us, our relationship with God is we are fallen away from Him through sin. He sent Jesus to save us. What would their relationship be like? Would it be similar, different, or and you know, how and why? You say?
Well, I get what you're saying. Are you saying, like, would they have like a Jesus sort of thing, like somebody who's been sent to them as like a sort of messenger, as a conduit between them and God? I would say probably so, because if God, I mean, let's say for example God wanted to see a total relationship with them as He does with us, then I'd suggest that He'd probably dead send someone like that. On a related note, here's the possible question for you, Michael. Do you reckon the alien Thunderfoot is more of a beast than the human Thunderfoot?
Oh, that is a very difficult question. I think that alien Thunderfoots would. I would love to see alien Thunderfoot locked in a room with our Thunderfoot and our Knuckle free.
Oh God!
And in fact, we'll let them have a debate, and we'll have it moderated by Gorilla 199. Which, I don't know if you guys are aware of who Gorilla 199 is, but he's one of those big believers in UFO conspiracy theories. So he thinks, for example, bicycle warning signs are actually markers of aliens preparing to take over the planet. So yeah, I do think that the alien version of Thunderfoot will probably be every bit as much a douche as ours.
All right. Yeah, that was brilliant, boss man. And I would agree with Michael. And I would say that, I mean, I don't know. I would say that the relationship of God to aliens would be, I think, similar to ours. I mean, let me explain some of my ideas. I actually have put some thought into this simply because I am currently working on a series that is simultaneously theology and sci-fi, a series of writings. what I would guess is that at the beginning of their existence on their home planet, the living thing is, I mean, even this model, there are a couple of problems with, but particularly a specific scriptural issue. But what I would say would be at least a couple of possibilities would be, one would be to say that in the beginning of their existence, the life is given a choice between between falling and not falling, and those that fall, such as us, get a savior. Those that don't fall don't need a savior, so they don't get one. That's so like for example, in the series, there's I only have one species that's not falling, simply because there's no interest. They're uninteresting if they don't, except these guys I've managed to make very interesting. But like there will be the ones that did initially in the garden never eat the fruit. They spread throughout the galaxy and may find others that did, or they may not. They may be lost on their home planet. The speed of light barrier could be there to isolate the sinful planets from the not sinful ones. Because God doesn't want humans with our evil interacting and spreading our disease, frankly, to aliens that didn't initially choose to fall. And of course, that's just one speculation. An entirely another possibility is that everyone fell, and that's actually what I would be inclined to suspect is predominantly true. Or it could be that there are different spiritual ailments, and if that's the case, then Savior, that's the cure for having sin as a spiritual ailment. There may be others that can come about by different means, and there are different solutions for them.
Okay. Daniel? Do you want to go next, Mike? Rebecca, if you want to go next.
No. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say what the puppy was saying about how that the God might not want us contaminating other aliens. I think there's actually a novel or at least a short story by Dostoevsky, which discusses some guy. It's not about aliens, unfortunately, but it is about a guy who I think he dies and goes to some like spiritual plane where everyone's perfect, and he ends up corrupting them all or something. So that's definitely one possibility. The way I look at it is that the only way that they'd be related to God is if obviously they're sapient, that they're conscious people, such as us. Obviously not necessarily the same like physical form, but definitely they have the consciousness and like intelligence to be able to apprehend God and to communicate with God. Whether or not they need salvation depends on whether they're in the same kind of fallen state. So that's or one possibility I have heard of or I've heard discussed is whether or not they might be similar to angels or demons in that they're either they're either unable to fall, or that they're kind of like perfect, like angels almost, or that they're like demons are and impossible to save or something. I mean, that's an idea I've heard discussed. I don't necessarily agree with it, but don't necessarily disagree with it either. That's just something I thought I'd add to the discussion.
I mean, if I may, Hans.
Yeah, if no one else wants to speak, you know.
What I would say is that I would imagine that of biological creatures, I don't think that there's going to be many entire species beyond salvation. What I would say is that they would fall, as I said, into two categories. I mean, by the way, the scriptural problem with it, I mentioned, is it says, all of creation is groaning or something like that. That's not exactly specific, but it could indicate that there's not much of anything out there living in a perfect paradise. So, and of course it's absurd, if the initial test, it's passing it guarantees you eternal life, and yet this universe is going to end, then either they're going to be moved over, which I don't see anything so horrifically wrong with that it's unacceptable, that the ones that never fell would be just moved over to new heavens and new earth. If it's identical in every way, even has their same possessions and all of that, I don't see a horrible problem with that. I think they would be kind of okay with it. So they might even be happy because now the ones that fell are going to have paradise like they do. And they would, of course, be sinless, so they would be almost perfectly submitted to the will of God. And what I would say is that there would be fallen ones like us, and then there would be sinless ones, perfect ones that passed the garden test, that never fell, and therefore, they are without sin, would find the concept disgusting, and or I don't know, there's a question of what is exactly the moral metaphor of the garden, because was it a choice that was made at a single time, or was it the thing was there for them to fall anytime they wanted? Like in Genesis, of course, it's there for them to fall anytime they want. But that would be the case. But at the same time, there's the tree of eternal life, which is one of the things, because of course they already had eternal life, we know, and wouldn't have died had they not fallen. So, what is the tree of eternal life doing there? It seems like one of the things that indicates symbolism. And also indicates a sort of dichotomous choice, possibly. But again, I don't think we can actually know.
I agree.
If it is the case that falling is inevitable for every single species, that kind of sucks. But what that does mean is that we'll be able to interact with other horrifically, spiritually diseased creatures.
But one issue this does raise is obviously whether or not it's appropriate to evangelize to aliens, whether or not they have. I think it was you, Puppy, who said, do they have their own version of no, it might have been Bossman who said they might have their own version of Jesus. I can't remember. But yes, one interesting. Okay, that's one interesting thing we could probably either discuss now or maybe alongside what we're discussing already.
Well, actually, I had a thought on that. Is that if we actually made contact with extraterrestrials, assuming that they were somewhere within a relatively reasonable framework equivalent to us, so that they weren't so powerful they were going to step on us by accident, and they weren't so weak that we were going to accidentally wipe them out. I think, yes, eventually, at first, all contact would be done through governmental agencies and stuff like that, but as the societies began to coexist, the religious population would eventually begin to evangelize to the aliens. And I would assume that if the aliens had any kind of religion, that their religious would attempt to evangelize to us. And I think that that's an interesting thought in that, first of all, I'd just love to see YouTube at that point. could you imagine, as heat as some things get now, imagine Thunderfoot's disgust at the evangelists out there trying to convince aliens in a God that he doesn't believe in. I think that would be hilarious. But
we have to keep Thunderfoot in quarantine away from them, lest he embarrass humanity and trigger our extinction.
yeah, well, again, we're going to lock him, Nephilim Free and Gorilla 199 into a room. And if the aliens have a Thunderfoot, and that's something we'll have to, talk to them about. Do you have a Thunderfoot? Do you have a Venom Fang X? If so, we've built this special room that you can dump them in, so that the rest of our two societies can live in relative peace. But, I do think it's interesting, while we're sitting there trying to think, would we try to tell them about Jesus? What if they're sitting there trying to tell us about Blatnard and how, 10,000 years ago, Blatnard came down and sacrificed himself so that everybody could get to Nikva. And we're all sitting there thinking, this guy's crazy, but he might be telling the exact same story that we want to tell them. Mm. And that would be really interesting, is if they not only had their own religion, but it was eerily similar to Christianity.
Sorry, do you want to go first, Puppy? Because I always go off. Could I go after you, if that's okay?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Or do you want to go first?
I'm just going to say, well, then people like Terry Ross will say, that's where Christianity comes from this alien rights.
Oh, God.
Yeah. In my opinion, if I may say, alien. I would say that if aliens have the same spiritual ailments, a savior is the cure for that, and God loves them just as much as He loves us, presumably, and therefore, they're going to get the same. They're going to get whatever they need, just like we're getting what we need. And I would say that if Christianity is true, we would predict that at least some of them would have their own alien Jesus, and that's actually why I would say it would be inappropriate to evangelize to extraterrestrials, because we would actually probably be dragging them away and distracting them from their savior. We don't want to focus that, we don't want to focus them on ours, which we don't know, we don't know if they have their own savior, or if they're aware of ours, or if, or if it's simply, or if they have completely different spiritual ailments. I don't think it would be appropriate to evangelize to them, because I think that if Christianity is true, if God exists, He's got it under control.
Okay. Sorry. I was just going to say, well, you say that, but I'll be like, how are we supposed to spread the message? I mean, like,
although it does specifically say to spread the message all over the world, it doesn't say and throughout the universe.
Keep in mind, Boss Man, I'm speaking from the standpoint of literal Orthodox Christianity, not Unitarian Universalism. So, from my standpoint, where the goal of evangelism is to convince people to become Christians such that they are not damned, I think that God would have that situation under control on their planet. So. Yeah, that's the perspective that I came from. If it's in a hypothetical Unitarian Universalist world, I think since every religion is equally legitimate, I think it would be just as inappropriate, because it would be a worthless endeavor that would really just ignite controversy to evangelize to extraterrestrials, because God would have them under the same. Likewise, God in the Unitarian form would have them under control, expressing Himself in the way that was fitting for their culture, which would be radically different. So I would say in a Unitarian viewpoint, like you would hold to, I would say it would be inappropriate to evangelize extraterrestrials simply because, for the same reason that I think, so yeah, and I would say that, but from the Orthodox, more Orthodox Christian viewpoint, or at least I think I'm completely within Orthodoxy Christian viewpoint that I would hold to. I would say it's radically inappropriate to evangelize extraterrestrials as if God does not love them and have it under control.
And what about the Westboro Baptist Church?
That room you mentioned with Thunderfoot, Nephilim, and Gorilla 199.
I just picturing them showing up at the landing site, God hates Martians or something.
Hold on a second. What?
Chris, Thunderfoot,
What?
Hold on.
Yes! I will do it.
Do you get a new computer soon?
I just finished building a new computer. I'm on it right now. I'm lacking I'm lacking a significant sized hard drive so that I cannot do any video editing yet. But I have one ordered and I will hopefully get it this week. So I just have a little 60 gig solid state drive that I use as a boot drive, but it's got like no room on it after loading my apps and Windows. But yes, it's a very nice little system.
Cool, because I'm looking. Sorry, this is a bit off topic, but I'm just been waiting for more Russian Roundtable videos.
Well, I do appreciate that. I've been going absolutely stir crazy not being able to produce videos in the last few months. So, this computer hopefully will last me a while.
So what did you lose so we can repeat it?
Nothing important, so don't worry about it.
So what was it?
It was like a minute ago.
What were we saying?
I don't remember what you were saying.
Lol.
Sorry.
Okay, just to briefly summarize what it would be, I was basically explaining to Bossman his objection was that under his Unitarian Universalist view we're supposed to spread the message of peace, tolerance, whatever, to aliens. Therefore, it would be appropriate. And I was arguing both from my more Orthodox Christian perspective, and Unitarian Universalist perspective, because God would have them under control too either way. I would say that it's inappropriate, no matter what, to evangelize to extraterrestrials.
But let me ask you something on that, Tuffy, is that do you really think that, while I'm not a Universalist myself, if the message is primarily about peace, love, and tolerance, as opposed to believe this or go to hell, which is what the many of the evangelicals try to do, what's wrong with that? They're not saying, hey, you need to change your core beliefs. They're not saying you need to change your religion. They're just encouraging people to peace and love and tolerance. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing that would lead people away from their Savior unless their Savior is like Kahless from the Klingons, where their Savior is like, all good people will die in battle or something. I don't see how the Universalist message would be inherently destructive to anyone's religion.
Okay, I suppose I'll defend my views here. I think that what could be said is that maybe that's a message that they maybe not want to tell because maybe conflict for their species is a good thing. For us, it can lead to nuclear devastation, but maybe there was, because they were a high species, they had probably, plasma weapons or something, I don't know. What are the sci-fi weapons you want to say that they have?
Really lasers. I'm thinking about the Daleks from Doctor Who, except walking out, we are the Thunderfootians, you know, oh no.
There is no God but Dawkins. I mean,
Yeah.
what?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Resistance is futile.
I've been really off the past couple of weeks by conceiving of what it would be like if YouTube was an RPG, kind of like Final Fantasy. And what I conceive of Thunderfoot as being the leader of basically the evil team that is equivalent to Atheists. And his special attack will send like an army of like 100,000 things called Thunder Drones after you, and they'll slide into you and do damage.
Sorry, but Thunderfoot would be Sephiroth.
Richard Dawkins would be Sephiroth.
No.
Thunderfoot would be like the lowly.
Right? Thunderfoot hates green pizza, likes to pick on others. He's got a big God complex. He thinks that anybody who disagrees with him is insane or likes to brand them as insane. He's Sephiroth. Yeah, that's what Sephiroth does.
No, I have to stick by what Thunderfoot is a Darlac. I'm sorry, he really is. He believes that he is supreme, even when he's losing.
There's a fundamental rule about RPGs is that the main villain has to be cool enough to get away with acts of like multiple genocide.
Right, but Thunderfoot's not that cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why you got to go to Doctor Who.
It's not cool enough to be a Sephiroth.
Right, but he is definitely on the coolness level of the Darlacs from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. You got an entire race of people running around in garbage cans with toilet plungers sticking out of them, and the inside is basically green goo.
Okay, first we want to say from my low expertise position of having not played Final Fantasy VII, my opinion is that Sephiroth sucks and Jenova is the real villain.
Okay.
Yeah.
But Sephiroth kind of takes over.
Yeah.
Does Thunderfoot have an Oedipus complex?
I don't know.
If it was going to be a good analogy, it would have to.
Maybe he's more of a Kefka. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking, no. Kefka Palazzo was completely friggin' insane, so that's got to be like His Truth Be Known or Nephilim Free. So it is Nephilim Free, because Nephilim Free has a god complex, is completely fat crap insane. The only difference is that he doesn't have that sort of destruction.
I can't really picture him annihilating the entire world just because, yeah.
So Nephilim Free?
Yeah.
Oh, I think given the power, Nephilim Free would wipe out the world. and he would be like,
okay.
And, yeah.
I was scarily like it.
And now we've gotten way the hell off topic. So,
well, Nephilim Free is an alien, so I think that, we are still on topic. And I'm not so sure that Thunderfoot is human, so.
I don't think he is human.
Nephilim Free is at least 25% human. What he is it's an alien and an alien and a human and a human and an alien. They each had offspring, and the result had Nephilim Free. So Nephilim Free is a hybrid of 3 aliens and 1 human. So it's those being his grandparents.
Okay.
I saw a TV program where that was the central premise, actually.
and I think his alien heritage are those little tiny aliens from Men in Black that would live inside the shells of people, and they happen to live in the earpieces of his headphones.
All right. Yeah.
And they're just whispering into his ears.
And speaking of Nephilim Free, what do you think of this hypothesis that the Antichrist will come down claiming to be an alien who created us via directed panspermia, and will then come down claiming to be an alien or a UFO and demand that we worship him because he's an alien.
Didn't Ken Hovind come up with that?
The sad thing is that when I was a Nephilim free, I actually believed something similar to that.
I'm pretty sure Ken Hovind has said something similar to that. I've seen a video where he claims that some kids were visited by aliens, and then they were like, he basically said there were demons, and that the kids shouted, "Go away in the name of Jesus," and they went, "Oh, I was a what? What is this going on?"
You're thinking of the director. You're thinking of the director of CMI Australia.
Okay.
That's who you're thinking of, and that's who you're thinking of. He's the only young Earth creationist, primarily apologist that really addresses the issue of UFOs. And it's I don't think it's possible for them to just say, yeah, UFOs. What that is that's planets and clouds and weather balloons and all of these other things, and people don't understand that, so they project what they want to be true on the sky. You know, that idea is kind of foreign for whatever reason. Yeah. If you want to call into the Bishop Time show, please send a Skype invite to FISHOSTIME, all lowercase, all one word. Do not call us. We will call you. Do not appear offline, and if possible, call in with an actual question and not just talk. I have no idea how many people are in the Blog TV to hear that. It may be just poking.
There are 6 people in the Blog TV with 2 people that aren't one of us. So, pretty sad attendance.
Yeah. One Claw Beach and Hippo. Yeah. All right. We do have 20 minutes. Okay. Here's a question. I don't know. All right. Here's a question. What do you think it would be like if it happens that aliens do exist? Some of them are saved, and we get to encounter them in heaven or on the new earth, in the new heavens, new earth, i.e., which the new heavens, new earth. What do you think What do you think it would be like to have aliens there Do you think it would make heaven much more uber awesome, or do you think it would degrade the quality of heaven?
I think that it would make heaven like the cantina scene from the original Star Wars, and hell would be the cantina scene from the original Star Wars Special Edition.
Can I just say something?
No.
I just want to say something, just in case George Lucas is listening.
Just in case he exists.
I was going to say, right, George, Han shot first.
Yes, Han did shoot first.
And also editing that bit in Return of the Jedi where Darth Vader goes, "No." That was the worst decision in Star Wars history, I think. That alone. I don't care what anyone else says. That bit ruined it.
Regarding who shot first?
No, we're not going that way. Jacob, what about you? We were talking about this earlier. As a Catholic, because Catholics are extremely sexually repressed, do you think it would be sinful to have sex with an alien that was consenting and of the opposite gender if they had that?
If you're married to the alien, then no.
But would that be applicable? I mean, it seems like it would be bestiality.
I don't know.
It would only be bestiality if they were considered beasts.
Good point.
Touché, good sir.
I mean, that's kind of, to say it would be bestiality is actually kind of specious. It's saying that they are inferior to us, that they are like beasts of burden to, that would be...
What I'm proposing is something like separate but equal, except on a galactic
Oh, so
scale.
Jim Crow laws. I mean, so if there is an intelligent alien presence out there that can actually have a societal level interaction with humans, then you're going to have cross-species relationships. And I agree with what Jacob said. If they get married, assuming that the aliens are in some way theists, or at least a significant percentage of them are theists, such as it is with humans, and they believe in the institution of marriage as we do, and they enter into the marital contract with God as a witness and all that just like we do, how is that sinful? Just because they don't technically qualify as being human, if they are intelligent and sentient and all that, I can't say is, because we talk about joining two souls together. Well, two souls does not necessarily mean two human bodies.
Okay, anyways, and also, Jacob, as a Catholic, what do you think of the idea? What do you think, do you think that aliens would have their own alien Jesus, or what would their relationship with God be like?
It would probably be the same thing with humans.
And then, I don't know,
It'd be interesting if there was a Catholic church in space.
That would be cool.
With a space pope.
Pope Sidious.
But here's the thing with the alien space pope Catholic Church have a problem with having to offer contraception to its employees.
His Holiness finds your lack of faith disturbing.
Yeah. And that would be great. Every time the Pope comes out on Sunday morning, you hear da 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 da.
And would it also have pedophile priests?
if pedophile was applicable, it's entirely conceivable.
Sorry to disturb you, but Hippo wants to come in, and he says he's already on the list, so could you add him in or?
He's not on the list. He needs to send a friend request.
He says I'm already on the contacts list. I wish to call in.
I'm taking him off.
Okay, well, add us back in, Hippo. We'll add you in.
I took everyone off except the cast right after their call in, and that includes guest stars. And so, that's just to keep it from getting cluttered.
Okay, well, I've just added them in.
Okay, let's bring him in.
Guys.
Okay, what's your question, query, or statement?
My question is, how likely do each of you think that there's other life, or specifically intelligent life, in the universe?
Extremely.
I think it's low for intelligent life, but 50-50 for any life in general.
I would say that the possibility of life of any form existing out there is, as close to 100% certain as you could possibly get. As far as intelligent life, I would have to agree 50-50, just based on the fact that we don't know what all the criteria would have to be to develop intelligent life. We can only make assumptions.
Do you think if there was intelligent life, it'd be more advanced than we are currently?
Depends on.
Some wouldn't.
They always seem to portray them as not as Ewoks, but these super advanced, intelligent beings with technology, They have access to trans-dimensional travel and stuff like that.
Depends how long
It would be a mixed bag. There would be some that would be more advanced than us, some that would be pathetic compared to us, some that would be slightly more, slightly less advanced, some that would be where we are, or where they're typically portrayed as being. It would be a crazy mixed bag. There is no definite answer to that.
Actually, if I can interject just for a second, I think that right now, it would be extremely likely that the alien life would be much more advanced than us. However, as time goes on, that statistic will change because we are a relatively young race, and therefore, if there's 100 billion races out there and we're a relatively young one, then that means that most of them are older than us. However, eventually we will be an old race, and at that point, the majority of races will be younger than us, and so we will be the ones who are way advanced and all that, but we'll already have our trans-dimensional spaceships and all that.
Well, that would be given that either, the rest of the ones ahead of you remain static or they die out or something. Who says?
Right. Well, no, because if in a dynamic universe, the number of races would have to be constantly increasing. And so as that number increases, it shifts the balance towards us being more advanced. Because obviously, if, say, 100 million light years from here, there is a planet just like Earth where the first primate is becoming what we would call human or whatever their equivalent is right now, then that's adding one more intelligent species to the mix.
Well, who said they would be humanoid? I mean, they could be.
Well, I understand, but I'm just saying whatever their equivalent is on their evolutionary path. And so as more life pops up, as the population of the universe grows, then we will have more seniority. However, considering that for the first 14 billion years, we weren't around, if anything developed in those first 14 billion years, they're going to be way more advanced than us.
I guess I would say it's kind of a relative term when we in advance. Like, how would we even like?
Well, technologically speaking.
Well, because different generations have a different idea of what they expect to be advanced. Like, the whole idea of the steam, what do they call it? Like steampunk kind of fad is basically what people like in the early 1900s would have imagined the future to be like. Then you have the 50s with the kind of rocket punk kind of look of the future that kind of looks like something out of the Jetsons. And now we have a different view of what we expect the future to look like. Some more akin to like Back to the Future with the self-blazing Nikes and the flying cars and all that. But I mean,
we just changed what our vision of the future of humanity is based on where we are today, based on an extrapolation of current technology, current societal attitudes and everything, and where they think that's leading. But I think that, will technology improve? Absolutely. How will it improve? Bless you, whoever that was. How will it improve? There's no way to know, because it could take directions that we haven't even conceived of. So it's impossible to say what society will be like a million years from now, if society even still exists a million years from now.
Well, whether we still be considered full of seed.
Well, but assuming mankind hasn't been wiped out, in a million years, I assume that we would be still somewhat physically recognizable as human. But if what will technology be? Because technology advances at a much faster pace than our biological evolution. And if our technology grows at the pace it's been growing, in a million years, we'll have things that today would just seem like pure magic.
Yeah. Okay. Daniel, sorry. You've had this happen for a while, Michael. Sorry.
Yeah, no,
sorry. I don't know. I guess I was saying it depends how far along their evolutionary scale, but also we point about what point did their planets created. So obviously, I can't remember who said it now. There's like a gap of like 14 billion years before we arrived, or something like that. Or like, yeah, because the planet, because Earth obviously is about it's only like 4 point something billion years old, whereas the universe as a whole is like 13.8 billion. So there's a gap of time. So whether or not something would be able to evolve, and also if so, like, would there be even if they did start like life on another planet began before life on Earth began, whether or not they've had cataclysmic events that wiped them out, or whether or not they've had like cultural events like wars and that which set them back and so on. So it's kind of interesting to think about, I guess.
Well, it always amused me that the most generic kind of portrayal of extraterrestrial life, that would always portray them as, skinny, androgynous sort of eggheads, black eyes with no pupils. I always found that picture amusing. I always wondered why they did that.
I think it's actually based on, I don't know.
Sorry, Papa Turtle, you go.
I haven't figured out yet if it's, because my understanding is that is rather similar to what a sleep paralysis patient would be considered to be most probable to see. I haven't quite figured out, I don't know if the general, I don't know, did that description of the alien pre-exist or predate or post-date the quote-unquote abduction, quote, phenomenon, quote, because if it's the case that, we had alien abduction, we had alien abduction before that, then I would say that that's why they look like that, because it's based on that testimony. If it's the opposite, I would say it's just what's easy to put in a freaking suit, and that's how it worked. I'm not sure which, but yeah,
Well, the whole account of extraterrestrials goes back a while. I believe the first one that proposed it, I don't know the one that proposed the kind of stereotypical, like, androgynous kind of figure that I'm talking about, with like the big head and the black eyes. The first one that proposed the idea of there being life outside of our own planet. It was an Italian philosopher by the name of, I know I'm going to butcher this name, Giordano Bruno. It's from about 16th century. Anyone familiar with who I'm talking about?
I've heard of the name.
Yeah. So he was like the first one to propose that there were other life forms outside of our biosphere. So kind of interesting, kind of tie that into what would that mean salvifically? Say there are other, creatures on other planets whose sin has entered their worlds, and so God would have to, have to have a salvation plan for them as well. Something like that. So, I found that sort of interesting. I mean, what would you guys think if it turned out we were the only life in the universe and there were no aliens? We're the only intelligent life in the whole universe. What would you guys think of that?
It would be the strangest thing. It would be the strangest thing that, we originated and, that we originated and other things didn't. I mean, it depends on to what extent you would see God is involved in the process of evolution. I'm inclined, yeah. I've inclined to believe he allowed natural processes to play a role in his mechanism of creation wherever possible, but intervened supernaturally when it needed to be different.
Well, suppose, one of the most fundamental assumptions that we make in the scientific method is assuming the uniformity of nature. What if, by kind of chance, that we're kind of wrong about that, or if, the constants don't necessarily work exactly in the way we think they do, uniformly throughout the entire space-time?
All right, Michael?
Well, I was going to say, first of all, if the universe is not logically consistent, then there's no point in science whatsoever. Because
No. I'm not saying logically consistent. I'm just saying if our assumption for, like, the uniformity of nature, the continuity of natural law, insofar as we assume it's uniformity throughout space-time, what if it turned not to be true?
Well, this is basically, you're saying the same thing just in a different way. The universe would not be consistent. If the universe is not consistent, then speculation about what goes on in other places in the universe becomes meaningless, because what happens here may or may not happen anywhere else given the same circumstances.
Well, I guess I'm kind of asking more along the lines of, would that mean anything to you existentially if it turned out, we were the only life in the universe? Would that kind of be
Actually, I think if we were the only life forms in the entire universe, that would be a very compelling argument for the existence of God, because of the simple fact that would mean that evolution is not just a simple natural process that will happen inevitably as long as the conditions are right. Because obviously, statistically, we can show that the conditions are most likely right in millions of places around the universe. And therefore, without some kind of divine hand, evolution can't get started, can't get going at the very least. And so I think that it would, in fact, it would mean that either there was something incredibly unique about Earth that we can't seem to figure out, because by all accounts, there's nothing particularly remarkable about our star, about our planet, about our solar system, or there's a divine hand. And so I do think that it would be a good argument for God.
Well, how things normally tend to play out, the reality of the situation seems to be stranger than what we imagine it to be. So, that may be. Who knows? Unless some kind of alien life form lands on here and goes bleep, blorp, bloop, translation, hi Earthlings, how's it going? I don't think we'll figure out that anytime soon.
Do not run. We are your friends.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
What was
Can I
that?
speak now?
That was Mars Attacks.
Yeah. And then they killed them by playing country music.
Yeah.
Yes, Hank Williams. Yes, it was Hank Williams.
You read
Speaking of which, have you seen the upcoming film Iron Sky, the trailers for that?
Yeah, that's great.
So the Nazis have been hiding on the dark side of the moon since the 1940s, and now they're invading.
What?
Nazi zombies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The basic premise of the movie is that in 1945, when the Nazis were losing World War II, they launched a bunch of rockets to the moon to escape, and they've been plotting the annihilation of everybody for the last 50-odd years. And in 2018 or whatever, they're launching their all-out blitzkrieg against the Earth, and it's called Iron Sky.
That's friggin' awesome.
It's hilarious looking. And I love
Nazi zombies don't not look as awesome.
Yeah, now we have Nazi spacemen, and one of their leaders is being played by Udo. I can't remember his last name, but I love that actor. It's a little independent film. They've been developing it for a few years. It's called Iron Sky. And their moon base is this huge building that's shaped like a swastika.
Sure, it's just not 4chan.
What if they have an advanced at all? What if they still have like the weapons that they had in World War II?
Well, that's what it looks like. Is that all their technology is based on designs from World War II, and so even like their large spaceships look like Zeppelins.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Blitzkrieg! Oh wait.
You have an AC-130? Oh dear.
Drop an H-bomb on them. Oh no! This is not wunderbar. Oh.
Nice.
They need to go with a Nazi zombie movie. I know they're taking advantage of that in Call of Duty games, but they need to make a movie.
There is. Dead
Really?
Snow. Norwegian. It's a Norwegian film called Dead Snow. Look it up. I've got it on Blu-ray. It's amazing.
My dreams just came
And they're
true.
making a sequel as well. So.
What's it called? Blue Snow? What?
No, Dead Snow.
Dead Snow.
Dead Snow. It's so funny. It's a bit where he gets bitten, and then he's like changed that bit of then he cuts that bit off, right? And he's like looking all triumphant, and then like a zombie bursts out of nowhere and bites him in the balls. That's just like the best bit, I think. No, I've just ruined it for you.
Here you go, Hippo. Check that out.
I should probably link to the trailer to, what was it, Dead Snow as well. Anyway.
I could seriously go imagine them attacking, just being like, we shall not have Blitzkrieg of days. This is nothing like I expected to be. Someone must have these thoughts. Run away!
Yeah, from the looks of it in the trailer, Sarah Palin is president.
Okay.
Oh God.
Is she in the process of invading Iran?
I don't know, but from if I remember correctly, she was when they told her that Nazis were invading from space, it got her all excited because she got to go to war.
Oh, I can see the Germans from my house. They're dropping bombs on us. So you're not joking. In the movie, she is Sarah Palin's president.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
They have waited 70 years. Oh yeah, I've just seen the snapshot of the swastika moon base.
That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, take us right. We need to wrap this up.
Sure.
Okay. Has everyone got any final thoughts?
Space Pope, cool, Space Thunderfoot, douche.
Suddenly just realised that the guy, I remember the guy you're talking about.
Yeah, Udo.
Yeah, he's Yuri in Yuri's Revenge and Red Alert 2.
Yeah. I would just like to say that this has been a pretty good show, despite our rather smaller cast and the disappointment of not getting to do Miracles. I'll do the last one because I know what the next show is and such. So everyone else wraps up, and then I do the last wrap up of all of us.
Oh, Space Nazi's also cool, by the way.
Have you seen the Dead Snow trailer? That's good.
No.
You should check that. out.
I'll look that up, definitely. You sent me the link, so I'm on the video link now, so I'll look at it.
Yeah.
I'll watch it. The idea sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, Space Nazis.
I'll just say the next show, if we can get UNFF Wildcard to do the next show, it's going to be on Miracles. Else, there are a couple of different possible topics amongst them, including miracle, or other than miracles, there's also Calvinism, the Atonement, free will, and purpose, and if we do Calvinism, I'm gonna try to get UK Christian 28 on, or Funky Theists. Yeah.
So you're gonna try to get you in that wild card on?
If we do miracles, then absolutely.
Hey guys, I'm gonna end the recording now, so I can get going.
Okay.
So.
So see you guys.
Okay,
Thank you.
goodbye.
Have a good one, Jacob.